Hello. Welcome to Epic Fail. I do hope you're all very comfortable there in your seats while we talk about our failures. It's all right, you can... I'm just trying to break the ice. Thank you very much for coming. Today I'm going to open the proceedings by simply telling you a story, a comedy of errors, and it's a story I enjoy telling because it's quite ridiculous. It's the kind of ridiculous situation I've found myself in from time to time in the pursuit of a career in music. It's September 2007, and I'm to spend a month in New York. It sounds romantic, but what is to follow lacked a little of the charm that I'd expected. There are three main characters. Firstly, me. I'm Sarah Blasko. I'm a singer. I write songs. I'm the youngest daughter of a teacher and a nurse. I come from Sydney. I don't know if any of this information is actually essential to tell you, but I feel I should kind of introduce myself. What is probably important for you to know is that although I'm a performer, I'm actually in many ways an introvert. And I'm probably not typically suited to the kind of career that I have personality-wise, I suppose. And it's something that I'm often aware of and perhaps I'm sensitive about sometimes. The second character is Benjamin Fletcher, who is one of my best friends and a guitarist in my band. He's very kind, very funny, we're like brother and sister and act accordingly when we spend any time together. We basically act like we're 12 years old. The third main character I'll simply name X to protect her privacy. She's a pop singer. In 2007, when my story is set, she is gaining in popularity. She has an obvious charisma, a magnetism, and in her presence, people feel like they've had some kind of religious experience. She's kooky, fun-loving, and yet somehow extremely down-to-earth at the same time. She's possibly my polar opposite. There were also a number of other supporting characters. X's flatmates, who I'll just call Film Guy and Film Guy's girlfriend and Fashion Guy. And then X's two tiny little dogs. The central theme, well, you could say that it's failure. Probably mostly just my own sense of personal failing coupled with downright bad luck. But there were indeed a number of setbacks, or what I would like to call a pervasive lack of success that coloured the experience. As success is the antithesis of failure, I do want to acknowledge here that although it's absent from this story, it wasn't absent in the experience. For starters, I celebrated my 31st birthday during this period. It's the best birthday I've ever had. A cliched New York experience. I went to a Broadway musical, then I went on a horse and buggy ride through Central Park. I visited the Empire State Building at night, and then I sang show tunes in a piano bar until the early hours of the morning. I also bought my guitar, a 1965 Martin nylon string, that has served me well ever since. We played some great shows, but that's not the story that I'm here to tell you. My story begins with my American record label agreeing to release my second record, What the Sea Wants, the Sea Will Have. Feeling that it would be best to be in the country for its release in order to do interviews, play shows, I agreed to spend a month in New York. We decide that this is the best location because the record label is there and we can do a residency on the Lower East Side at a bar called The Living Room. The plan is to play a show every Friday night and do interviews during the week. I decide to bring along my dear friend, Benjamin Fletcher. We're incredibly excited, and from memory, I think it was Ben's first time in New York. The first step is to find somewhere to stay. I've already asked around with a few people I know there to see if any sublets are available, but I've had no luck. I then decide to try asking a singer that I've had some correspondence with but never met. I'm shy to do this, but she had put herself out there a few years earlier when she listened to my record and had come across as possibly one of the friendliest people I'd ever met via email. So, putting my shyness aside, I send her an email asking for any leads on accommodation. Well, she responds above and beyond, replying, "Sure, stay with us. I just rented out an amazing loft apartment in Soho. You and Ben are more than welcome to come and stay. I reply in politeness and in a desire not to impose. But we'll need to stay for a month, the two of us. Are you sure about that? X replies, no worries, of course. We'll just have to sort out a bed for you both. Maybe you can buy a blow-up mattress or something. I can, of course, also pay you something for the time we're staying there, as it'll be saving me a lot of money, I say. She immediately replies with, how about you just buy me a bunk bed from eBay, like this one? And she attaches a link to a cheap 80s pine bunk bed for $150 and says, we can make the room into a fun kids' room for any guests that we have stay. I say, haha, that sounds like a great... Sorry, I didn't really practice this part of it. Haha, it sounds like a great deal. At this point, I think Ben and I would lie on the floor for free rent in New York City. So we don't care where we go, basically. Sorry, I'm very new to this. Hello. I'll need to keep stopping. Anyway, we can't believe our luck. The oddness of the request to just buy a bunk bed only adds to the fun of the whole adventure that awaits. How hard could it be to buy a cheap bunk bed on eBay? It all seems so simple and so generous. I start looking, perhaps a little last minute, for a bunk bed. And it's at this point that I decide I want to return her generosity with some of my own. I decide now that instead of just buying her a cheap second-hand pine bunk bed, I'll buy her a brand new bunk bed with a metal frame that's going to look cool in her brand new warehouse apartment. I send her a picture and she's pleased. And so the day comes when we finally arrive in New York City. The warehouse apartment of X is magnificent. It's huge, there's 5 bedrooms, there's open plan, there's a doorman, there's cool neighbours. We knew that she was doing well over here, but wow, we're really impressed. We float around her apartment on our own that day, like we're a case of rags to riches. In our rapture, we don't think or even care about a few details. Okay, so the bunk bed hasn't arrived yet. No worries. X says that we can stay in her room for a few days while she's away. There is also no door on the spare room that we're to inhabit, but they're details that we care little for as we're swept up in our surrounds. Particularly when her flatmate, Fashion Guy, invites us to a Fashion Week party that very night. Jet lag forgotten, we dance and drink all night in a ridiculous bar full of fish tanks. But with sore heads the following day, we admit to each other that perhaps we took it too far with her flatmates. Ben remembers dancing annoyingly in one of their faces, and I remember raving on at the other. We are faced with the embarrassing realisation that perhaps we acted quite a bit like kids from a small country town who were on their first overseas trip. We weren't quite sure why we acted this way. It may have just been the combination of a successful thrift shop adventure, followed by Katz's Diner and the Statue of Liberty, then too many vodkas, the DJ playing Billie Jean, the heat and acute jet lag. But the days pass and there's still no bunk bed, and I'm starting to get a little bit embarrassed. The people I bought it from assure me it's coming. At this stage, X comes home. We meet her for the first time. And as I described earlier, she's incredibly vivacious and charismatic. She says we can use her small fold-out kids' couch and the adult couch cushions from the lounge room. No worries at all. We don't mind what we sleep on. I spend the days trying to get things happening with the shows and the release of the album, and it's a little bit tough. There is not nearly as much to do as the record company had promised. It's disheartening, and I wonder if I've come here in vain. But then I think to myself that it's probably just worth it for the experience of being in New York. When I come back to the apartment each day, Ben and X are getting on like a house on fire. They are chatting and laughing, and I feel a little left out, but I'm happy that Ben is having such a good time. Still no bunk bed. A few more nights go by, and Ben and I feel like 2 orphan children lying next to each other on the floor of our doorless room each night. We have to wait until everyone else goes to bed in order to sleep on the couch cushions. They have parties that go on all night because it's Fashion Week. The 2 tiny dogs piss on our belongings and shit in a familiar spot each day. And we create a wall with our suitcases, but they still find a way to get over them. As the windows are left open each night in the warehouse, we begin to become aware of an increasing mosquito population. It wears us down a little bit, but our spirits are still high. It's a free room in New York City, after all. Next night, as we're just drifting off to sleep, film guy and film guy's girlfriend begin a performance like none I've heard before or since. Ben and I whisper uncomfortably to each other. Can you hear that? Yep. They have sex that is so incredibly loud, we almost feel it would be acceptable to enter their room and applaud. They were like a busking duo performing a death-defying act. Surely it would be cruel to ignore, and they were just asking for a response of some kind. But still no bunk bed. My anxiety and mosquito bites are increasing. The sweltering heat of a New York summer is as well. And by this stage, we've already been staying at X's place for well over a week, maybe 2. And one night, while eating out at a cute little Italian place, I receive a rather lengthy text message from X. In those days of the Nokia 2210, it was a good 5 pages long. And Ben, scanning my face for reaction, immediately thinks I have exciting news. What? What? He says. I cannot believe my eyes. It's a text saying, Ben must go. I cannot understand how someone can be visiting New York and not be out enjoying it. Instead, he spends his days on the couch, surfing the internet and chatting to me. I've got a lot of work to do, and I need to feel like I can get on with it without having to chat to him. You need to find somewhere else for him to stay immediately. I'm forced to break the news to Ben. He is devastated as he feels they had such a great rapport. He is now faced with the reality that their friendship is a sham, and he is understandably hurt and angry. It's like a breakup, and he tries to retrace his steps and work out what he's done wrong. I try to assure him that she led him on most cruelly. Thankfully, we're able to find him a Craigslist sublet immediately, and none too soon for poor Ben. And a friend of a friend says he can stay in her room while she's away, which will cover him for the rest of the stay. I continue on at X's warehouse because I'm embroiled in this bunk bed fiasco. I'm there alone and feeling more and more foolish by the day. But at last the bunk bed arrives in all its glory. Huge boxes like none I've seen before or since. It's like unveiling dinosaur bones. I struggle to empty the boxes myself. It's like grappling with a giant jigsaw. And as I uncover each piece, I discover ever so slowly that something is horribly wrong. I study each piece of the metal frame as though I'm in forensics, trying to piece together exactly what has happened. You see, each and every component of the metal frame of the bunk bed is crushed and rusted, unusable. There's no way to attach each piece to each other because they're so badly bent out of shape. In my mind, what has happened to the bed is this. Each box fell off the back of a truck, and then a semi-trailer ran over each piece about 10 times. And my sense of humiliation and anger is acute. I tried to bury the dinosaur bones before X gets home, but it's impossible. Even getting them back into the boxes is fraught with problems. I run to a nearby hardware shop to buy some tape to stick all the shredded pieces of box back together. And in my anxiety, I buy the wrong thing. What I think is packing tape is the kind of tape that you would cordon off a construction area with. It's not adhesive, and it says danger. In my insanity, I tie some of it around my head because it's how I feel. I'm on edge. But to cut a rather long and ridiculous story short, I spend the greater part of the rest of my stay trying to deal with this bunk bed. I'm on the phone with the eBay seller and with the courier multiple times each day. One blames the other, and neither will refund or even take back the bed. I have to dispose of it as one would a dead body, because I'm in New York City and X and her doorman assure me that you can't just put it out on the street. I pay him $100 to dispose of it piece by piece over the coming weeks. And I'll do anything at this point to hide the shame and the embarrassment of failing at this simple task of just buying a bunk bed. X tries to be understanding of my predicament, but I can tell that she wonders how it could possibly be this complicated. It doesn't seem to even register in her way of dealing with the world. The look of disbelief in her eyes, amongst other interactions we have, makes me feel quite small in her presence. And one evening, she and I go out together. She is literally the life force of the party. So I'm talking a dance circle, and she is John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. And I feel like I'm her assistant. Not that John Travolta had an assistant, I don't think him. I'm not sure if she's making me feel like that or if I'm just doing it to myself. I go to order us both a drink, and I feel like I'm Crocodile Dundee, and everyone is pushing me out of the way and they can't see me. Another day we go to a cafe and I'm left holding her dogs and dry cleaning while she greets fans. It's humbling, to say the least. But I start to see a very definite divide between someone like her and someone like me. She was made for this. I was clearly not, and should just pack up and head on back home where I belong. It's now perhaps 2 or 3 days before I'm due to leave New York. And I'm not sure if it did, but from memory, I think my hair looked a little bit like this. Thanks. I felt really defeated. New York had had its way with me, and I was broken. After almost a month sleeping on couch cushions, I think I might have also been a little hunched. And in the state that I've described, I handed X the money for a bunk bed. I apologised, and I told her that I'm sorry that she just might have to buy one for herself. I give her $400. She says, "Thanks, no worries, we'll do." And I kid you not, within less than 24 hours, she had bought a bunk bed for $100 on eBay. It had then been delivered within the hour because the guy just happened to be in the area. He also threw in mattresses, pillows, and a patchwork quilt. When I arrived home that very night, dishevelled and disheartened and more than a little drunk, there was a beautiful solid wood bunk bed, a birthday cake and a candle that X had left out for me. Oh, how lovely. And X had become my nemesis. Anyway, a few days later, my very last words, absolutely, I kid you not, like just as I was about to walk on the plane, my final words were, "Thank you very much," because the eBay seller finally agreed to refund the money for the bunk bed. And that's the end of my story. Thank you.